everybody. Thanks so much for being here. I'm excited to see how many people will be on since we're doing a little different time than usual. So maybe we'll find this is a very popular time. So hi, everybody. You may know me. My name is Bridget Danner, and I am the host and founder of Women's Wellness Collaborative. And this webinar was inspired by you, really. We had so many women excited about our seed cycling challenge that I thought, people really have a lot of questions. People are really interested. So I thought about asking my friend and colleague, Magdalena Shalaki. Is that how I say it? Shalaki? Or
Close.
Not quite? Close. Tell me how. I want to get it better. Shalaki. Okay. I invited her to share some recipes, which she did recently, and to come on this webinar to answer your questions, and we'll just talk about hormones and food. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So welcome, Magdalena.
Hey, thank you.
Well, let's have everybody get to know you a little bit better. I'd love for you to share where you are. I teased about it, gave a teaser on our newsletter. Share where you are, share what you do, share what you've got coming up.
Did you tell people where I am?
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, otherwise I would have asked them to guess. Well, I'm in a country that's still waiting for the summer to happen. I'm currently in Iceland, and we're gonna be here for a total of 5 months, maybe a little bit longer. And we do not plan to spend the winter here. So yeah, it's been quite an amazing experience, but I have to say, I mean, the food is really just quite incredible here. Even though nothing grows here, like the chefs are so talented, people are really conscious of what they are eating. And, you can see the processed food is beginning to take over, but like there is a sense of, national pride and national dishes and eating local food that is quite amazing, and I'm really happy to see that.
Oh, cool. I know my brother traveled there, and I think he was saying you could always get, like, almost any place would have like soup, like a soup meal ready to go or something like that wherever you went.
Yeah, the lamb stew is an iconic soup here that's very healing, and it contains spices that you can't get anywhere else. Like the typical stuff like thyme, that is easily available anywhere, but they also have other things like specific berries that only grow in Iceland, as well as they use a lot of birch tree for everything, right?
Huh.
So birch apparently is very therapeutic, and so they use that in a stew. That's like a national soup. Yeah,
Cool.
it's very good. It's very, very good. It's just very wholesome. It's like, and you can eat it all year round because the summer never really happens here. I mean, it's like, it's 50, it's like 54 today. Yesterday was 62, which was like the hottest day everybody was talking about.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
Yeah. And, but it's an experience, right? I mean, we knew what we were getting ourselves into, but it's definitely a magical place. It's, I'm really blown away how these Nordics predominantly from Norway came through Ireland and England. They captured women, they enslaved them, brought them to Iceland.
Wow.
On these open boats, cattle, right? Very basic tools. And these Vikings just settled here in this most inhospitable place. Like, it's a volcanic island with ice and more ice, and they started harvesting, and agriculture slowly picked up, and and they lived off, I don't know what they lived on. I mean, fermentation is a big thing here, right? Because that was the only way to survive a winter. And so they ferment not only vegetables, but they also ferment foods, right? And so including, you might have heard of that, shark fat, which is called harkar.
I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, so obviously I had to try it. I mean, for most foreigners, it's pretty disgusting. I grew up in Asia, so I'm kind of used to a very wide profile of flavors, and it's definitely, for those of you who've been to like Taiwan or China, stinky tofu it's like stinky tofu times 3. So that's just to give
Wow.
you it smells of ammonia, and it's just it's pretty intense. but that's how people used to live here, and they still treat it as a snack and a delicacy. So so just exploring these things, it's a different world out here, that's for sure. Very different.
Well,
everything feels very small. After living in the United States, we walk into everywhere. It's like everything is huge in the US, right? And here everything is smaller. Like our washing machine feels tiny. And but if you think about it, it also encourages less consumerism, less consumption, and I'm all the way for it.
That's awesome. And what you do for your business is teaching people how to cook for hormones. So it sounds like you're getting a lot of culinary ideas here and learning about some new healing foods. And so that's really great.
Yeah.
Cool. And I just wanted to, one last thing. I hope I'm not spilling the beans too early, but I know you have a book coming out eventually at some point, and I just wanted to hear how it's coming along and give everyone a little preview on that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I've been cooking away, and that's one of the beauty of the work I do, is I can pretty much do it from anywhere, and pretty much everything is available here. So except for maybe some specialty things that I had to import from the US. But other than that, I just been cooking away. The book is coming along. It's going to have 145 recipes that are all very focused towards hormone rebalancing. They're going to be meal plans that are for specific conditions. So whether you're a person going through menopause, you've got estrogen dominance and cycling problems, whether it's thyroid, Hashimoto's, adrenal fatigue, PCOS, we've got meal plans for every one of these conditions. And so I'm handing in the manuscript in April next year, and the book is only out April the following year. So there's a little bit more to go.
Oh, okay. A little bit of a wait. Well, I'm very excited about it. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. So I thought we could start out the content here to talk about seed cycling, and many of our viewers are already doing it. But there are a lot of questions that have come up. So I thought we could just each share our own experience with seed cycling, and then we can take some questions on seed cycling. And then from there, I thought we can just sort of take questions on everything. So just for the listeners, that's kind of the format I was thinking. There's a chat box right over here. And when you put in a message, you can, there's a little tab to say it's a question. So I can kind of tell if it's a question anyways, but if you see the little button, you can say, or you can, create a question over on the right-hand side as you type in the chat. So yeah, let's do it. So I'll share briefly my experience, Magdalena, and you can follow up on it. I did some seed cycling probably, 12 years ago when I moved to Portland, and I was seeing a naturopath and started to do some seed cycling. And then frankly, I abandoned it for a long time. No particular reason. It just kind of happened. And then lately I've been getting into it more. And I thought, well, this would be a really easy, fun thing to do as a group, to just kind of get that conversation going about things we can do. I'm big into implementation. So I had the idea to create these monthly challenges that are just free and small, just to engage people. And this was the first one, and it's been a ton of fun. So I can tell from my experience, consistency is sort of my biggest challenge, really doing it every single day. But since we're doing the challenge, I really have been a lot better. So for my own cycle, I'm in day 13 of my cycle right now. So last month I was less consistent. I was in Hawaii and I didn't bring all my seeds and that kind of a thing. So, but I was doing it most of the month, and I was doing, I don't know if you probably have seen this formula, Magdalena. It's by Integrative Therapeutics. It's a AM/PM perimenopause.
Okay.
So I was doing that last month as well, along with some seed cycling. So first month sort of doing both, and I really had some improvements in my cycle. So I think through this winter, dealing with the hormone summit and this mold toxicity I'm recovering from, my cycle kind of took a little nosedive. I was getting more migraine, headaches around my cycle, which I never had. I also got better about doing magnesium. So I didn't to be fair, I didn't purely do seeds. I also layered on some more stuff, but I was pretty happy to see that in just a month, things were really churning around. And this month I've been very consistent with my seeds. So we'll see. And so far I know a few of our listeners and participants said they were having more regular bowel movements. I know one person said right away her first month she got her period back. And if anybody else wants to share in the chat what your experience has been, we'd be happy to hear it.
So how many people have you had participating in the challenge?
I think at least a few hundred, maybe more. So I'm organizing it through, I meant to share this link through our Facebook group, and some people were already in the group and some people just joined through the challenge. So I'm not totally sure, how many are doing it exactly, but I think a lot.
Cool.
Yeah, would you like to share some of your own experiences with seeds for yourself or seeds for clients?
Yeah, so, my cycle has been pretty regular. So I can't really tell that it's working for me because you gotta be having an issue to see an improvement, right? But I have a lot of women do the cycling with us in my community. And so, so a lot of improvements for a lot of people, and not just women who are cycling, but also women who are menopausal. I see hot flashes going away and just having less symptoms of everything goes with menopause, right? And so that's not surprising because you're basically detoxifying yourself of the aggressive estrogen, estradiol, and so it's not surprising and then you're boosting the good estrogen. So when you're having hot flashes, there's a low estrogen that's happening. So with the seed cycling, basically you can then bring up the good estrogen levels. So all of that is playing a role. I think the big thing that I see is, for women who say this is not working, I feel like when they say it's not working, meaning nothing has changed, right? Is that I feel like a lot of times that happens when we have a lot of other things going on that are sabotaging our hormonal production. And, I feel like at times, we look at things like seed rotation, like a replacement for a pill that we don't, like a pharmaceutical pill that we don't want to take. And we say, well, here I'm going to do seed rotation instead, while I'm still eating tons of gluten, I'm living off coffee, and I'm still doing dairy every day, and my digestion is in a mess, and I'm not sleeping enough, right? But putting all that hope into that seed rotation is going to solve everything, it's a little naive, and so I think seed rotation can do wonders and take anybody to the next level in conjunction with making these other sensible changes, like basically lowering the inflammation in your body, because all of that really boils down to how inflamed you are. When your cells are inflamed, these hormones are never going to bind to the receptors, and we're always going to have a challenge. So, so I would say that seed rotation, I love it, but I see better results for women who have gotten off gluten, who have gotten off dairy, who are limiting their sugar. They have a healthy relationship with sugar, right? Give up alcohol to a certain extent and sleep, make it a point to be in bed by 10 o'clock and, have a good night's sleep. So, so I just want to put it out there because, we shouldn't be seeing seed rotation like a replacement for another pharmaceutical magical pill, while going about our ways the same way. So,
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. So we did the seed cycling challenge just because simple and easy. It's not a whole program, but that's a great point. It's also take on what you're learning. Maybe some of you already follow Magdalena. Maybe some of you participated in the Hormone Summit. What else are you learning that you could implement, whether it's going to bed earlier or, doing more stress relief activities, like you said, reducing the gluten and the inflammatory foods. There's no, it's not a magic pill. Otherwise, someone would have put it in a pill by now. Well, you mentioned estrogen dominance, and I got that question a lot. That can happen around menopause, or it can happen for younger women too. And I got the question a lot, is this still safe to do or okay to do when I have estrogen dominance? Aren't I increasing my estrogen? So you made a few comments about that, but I wonder if you could elaborate on why it is still okay for estrogen dominance.
Yeah, so estrogen dominance is I think one of the most misunderstood things, and it's pretty complex. So if somebody doesn't get it the first time, don't beat yourself up for it, because it can be a little bit complicated. But I think if you follow Bridget, or if you follow my blog, on hormonesbalance.com, we're gonna do an article next month about that very topic, because it can be complicated. So first of all, estrogens are not all the same, right? There are various types of estrogens, and some of them are antagonistic, and some of them are more protective kinds of estrogen. So the first things that happens is when we eat foods like flaxseed, for example, which is very high in phytoestrogens, so the natural occurring estrogens, the first instinct is like, why are you asking me to eat more estrogenic foods when I'm already estrogen dominant? Which is a valid question. The complexity comes from a place that, like I said, there's various types of estrogens, and not all of them are bad. In fact, some of them are there to protect us. And so flaxseed, interestingly, helps to boost the good estrogens, and it blocks the receptors for the antagonistic estrogen. So this is the first thing that happens. The second thing that you want to look at when it comes to estrogen dominance is the metabolism of estrogen. When the estrogen gets metabolized, largely in the liver, there are these metabolites, these off products that are there. And again, when they get broken up, there are those protective ones and those antagonistic ones. And what happens with flaxseed, and there's research showing that women who take flaxseed on a regular basis, that's ground flaxseed, they tend to skew the balance more towards the protective metabolites of estrogen. So that's another benefit, right? And thirdly, when you're bringing up the good estrogen, you're also helping. When you get rid of that antagonistic estrogen, you're helping progesterone automatically to rebalance itself, so to oppose estrogen, so to speak. So in many ways, it's very beneficial. But I'm curious to hear about your practice, Bridget, because I have seen probably, I would say, 1 out of 10 women having reverse reaction to flaxseed, meaning that they get worse PMSs than not. And it's not a common occurrence, but it does happen. I have seen that happen. I'm wondering about whether you see that too.
I haven't seen that. No, but that's interesting. Maybe I wonder if it's converting over to testosterone somehow, and could that even happen? I'm trying to think. I'm just wondering if it gets somehow converted to another pathway, or if it gets kind of recycled. If we don't break down the estrogen, it gets recycled again and becomes more inflammatory. What do you think?
I really don't know. And I haven't worked with these women one-on-one to have a full history of what else is going on. I mean, certainly the one case that I can think of right off the bat is that when somebody has a lot of digestive issues, then flaxseed is generally not well tolerated, right? So people who are doing the AIP diet, paleo for autoimmunity, for example, right, will refrain from seeds and nuts for a good reason. So that's definitely a time when, if you have a lot of digestive issues to the point you can't tolerate flax seeds or nuts, especially seeds, right? I mean, nuts are not that important in this case, in this conversation, but seeds are. If somebody can't tolerate seeds, then I will say don't do it. Focus on other solutions.
It could be too irritating. Yeah, I know we had that question too. Someone said, well, I can't, she's on one of these protocols, and she said, well, I can't remember what it was. She can't do flax. So we were like, well, just do pumpkin, or maybe it was vice versa. But we had the question, well, do I have to do both seeds? And I don't think you really have to do both seeds, especially if you don't tolerate one. We don't want to create more of a problem.
Yeah.
So another question we've had a lot is about dosage. So I see some places they say 2 tablespoons a day. Some places they say 4 tablespoons a day. I've just been saying we'll do 2, and if you want to keep going, you want to put it in a second meal. And then I usually say, before, like a rounded teaspoon or tablespoon before grinding, because it gets quite fluffy once you grind it. Do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, so I like to start off a person slowly, and that's in my, in the article that I wrote about seed rotation, is to start off slowly, because especially for somebody who has not been on a high fiber diet, suddenly doing 2 tablespoons might give a reaction, and then it's very discouraging. So I would say like starting off with a teaspoon and then just building up to a tablespoon, and if you're having no reactions, then ending up with 2 tablespoons. Yeah, so I like to use flax above everything else, just because it is, in terms of the content of phytoestrogens, is much higher than pumpkin seeds. So I like that very much. But if somebody can't tolerate it, then there's a lot of other things that can be done for estrogen dominance. So I wouldn't be hung up about it just because you can't do flaxseed. It doesn't mean you can't rebalance your estrogen. I mean, in fact, we can talk about another solution, and that is beet, right? So beetroot, beet, and carrots are really wonderful for suppressing estrogen and building up progesterone, which is really beneficial in the luteal phase, right? So the second part of the cycle. And so what you can do is just make a salad, like a shredded beet with shredded carrots. Tends to be kind of high in sugar. So we have to, for people who, if you have insulin resistance, you don't want to do that. If you've got type 2 diabetes, you probably don't want to really do that unless you start off with like maybe half a cup at the most. But what I recommend to do in that salad is to add a lot of fiber to it. So you can add things like, fat and protein and fiber, right? So to really minimize the sugar spike. So adding things like chopped up walnuts, lots of olive oil, adding some flaxseed to it, ground flaxseed, right? And then really nice lemon or orange juice. That typically just gives some really great results. So I do that with like 5 days before a person gets her period. And that really helps with flushing out the estrogen. The beet and the carrots are just amazing.
Yeah, that sounds great. Are you going to do that recipe in your book?
Yeah, that's in the book, and there's going to be a beet carrot milk smoothie as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Somebody was asking, how are the seeds taken? This is Marcy. Marcy, I'll share the link to our instructional page too on this. So we have it in our Facebook group, but we also made a blog because not everybody is on Facebook. So I'll share that. But yeah, we had a lot of this question too. Do I have to grind it? Do I have to soak it? I'll give my 2 cents, Magdalena, but you can give yours as well. Here's our Facebook, or here's our blog with some instructions. So I usually say to grind unless you're going to chew it really, really well. And how well can you chew like a sesame seed, for example? It's kind of impossible. And as far as soaking first, it's definitely an option. It's going to change the texture. But if you're putting it like in a smoothie, you can certainly soak it overnight, rinse it, and grind it up in your smoothie the next day. If you don't digest seeds well or you need to soak them, certainly soak them. So I think there's some flexibility. We are sharing. We have some recipes on this link that I just shared. 2 are for your crackers. Some are. I have a porridge in there. I have a pesto, and we're actually about to add 3 more recipes. Maybe later today. So there are more coming in there just to add some variety. What's your opinion on grinding versus soaking and all that, Magdalena?
Yeah, so, the person who taught me the method, I remember in the training we were going through, and it was for naturopathic physicians, and I just happened to attend the workshop. And it was, the instructions was to grind it to release the lignans. And as you said, like, if you're chewing, then it's fine, but most people don't chew the seeds well enough. So grinding would just release most of the lignans, and all the properties we're talking about are in the lignans. And so definitely recommend grinding. About the soaking thing, it's a good idea, especially for somebody, if you're doing this regularly and you're having digestive issues, I think it's a really good idea to soak things. If you're just grinding it right away the following morning, like what you said, Bridget, I think that's great. But you don't want to have wet seeds sitting there for more than 2 days because they're gonna start to rot. And so it's really important that mold builds up, and it's just not good. So what you want to do is you want to either dehydrate it, right, in a dehydrator, or like I've never had it. I had a dehydrator, but only for a short period of time. I always lived in small apartments, so the practical thing to do is just to take a baking pan and then spread out the seeds on it and put the oven on the lowest temperature, open the door to let the circulation in, and let it dry there for 6 to 8 hours. And that totally works. That's like a dehydrator. You're not really cooking them either, so they remain raw. But the temperature you want to see is like no more than 120 Fahrenheit, right? So that's another possibility. And it's a great idea to soak things because it makes the food more digestible. So especially for people who are having a lot of digestive issues, or you have a history of digestive issues, your tummy is like not too happy with seeds, like you can feel it. It's that sense of heaviness is there. Then I definitely recommend to soak it and then dehydrate it.
Dehydrate it unless you use it right away, type of thing. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and everybody's different.
Having said that, flaxseed, I've never tried rehydrating flaxseed because flaxseed, well, unless in the crackers, because flaxseed is gonna create this glutinous substance around it, and I think if you were to dehydrate it, it will probably just be like this one big cracker, so to speak, which is not a bad thing. I've just never done it on its own, but I don't think it's an easy one to dehydrate right away. So, but having said that, most people don't have a problem with flaxseed. Actually, I see more people having problems with like the other ones, the sunflower, the sesame seeds and pumpkin.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the smaller seeds are easier to digest, and they're so easy to grind, and that makes them more digestible. I would say, yeah, the pumpkin, and especially for me, I feel like the sunflower is maybe the most challenging to digest, that I'd be most tended to soak first. So, yeah, really interesting. So I hope that answered some of those questions, and anybody's welcome to follow up if they're still not sure. Joy had a question about the seeds. She said flaxseed is high in omega-3, but sesame and sunflower are high in omega-6, which is pro-inflammatory. Is that okay for those who have an autoimmune disease? What are your thoughts on that?
So I don't see anybody having actually a worse case of an autoimmune disease flare-up because of doing the seed rotation. If your diet is completely doing things like, a good quality salmon, having it once, twice a week, using fish oil as a supplement, it's going to rebalance itself off. You're not using big quantities of it. So I don't see anybody having a problem. In fact, on the reverse, a lot of people with thyroid problems, for example, have issues with estrogen dominance. In fact, estrogen dominance is the leading cause of thyroid nodules and thyroid cancers. So when you're doing the seed rotation, you're actually really helping your body get rid of that estrogen, which estrogen tends to be inflammatory, just by the way. So I think there is more benefits. You tend to gain more from this rather than be worried about the omega-6. But so I think it's a good question. I think the more important question here, though, is about seeds, if anything at all, is for people who are having a copper toxicity, for example. These seeds are high in copper, and so copper needs zinc in order to rebalance itself, right? So it's a reminder about having a balanced diet, and including things like, for example, sardines, which are high in zinc, is always a good idea. Oysters are high in zinc, right? So having those once, twice a week, little sardines in BPA-free cans are just a wonderful addition. So copper, I think it's a bigger concern, especially if somebody has a copper toxicity or history of copper toxicity, who's been cooking with copper pans, which is a really bad idea. They're very pretty, they're very expensive, they're very snobbish, but they're really quite a bad thing to do for your health. I think that's a bigger concern than the omega-6.
Okay, yeah, and I would piggyback that, if you're getting some omega-6 from a whole seed that's like raw or soaked and it's a pretty small amount, it's different than like cooking with super high omega-6 oils or eating out all the time. So Joy, it sounds like you're probably very conscious of your diet already, and I think that getting some omega-6 from like whole food sources is somewhat like to be expected with a well-rounded diet of foods. So I hope that helps. Okay, I'm just writing some of your notes because I think they're interesting. I hope that helps for people. Okay, let me get another question here. So Karen said she's 49 years old. She has a complete hysterectomy, and she was unsuccessful with trying bioidentical hormones, and she'd like to hear how she can help herself with food. So, maybe we can open up the conversation a bit. Can seed cycling be beneficial for her with their complete hysterectomy? And also, there's some other fun things that we could do for Karen.
Did you say full hysterectomy? So no ovaries, right?
Sounds like complete hysterectomy, she said.
Yeah, so in my practice, what I see is that women who have a reaction, first of all, to bioidentical hormones, I see that a lot happening when we have issues with our liver. So that's something to look into, and especially at that age, it's very normal that our liver takes a hit, and so I would recommend to do some gentle detoxification on your liver. It doesn't have to be through fasting, but if you want to do fasting, that's fine too. Find a program that really helps to support the liver through nutrition and some supplements, but predominantly through nutrition. Things like dandelion, parsley, milk thistle, like just some wonderful solutions to support the liver. So that's the first thing I will look at. And the liver is really important in metabolizing all the hormones and estrogen, more than anything else. So that's the first thing I would look at, is to really support your liver. And just because you lost your ovaries, it doesn't mean that your body is not producing estrogen anymore. There are two other organs that are producing it. The first one will be your adrenals, that are producing small amount of estrogens. Of course, putting you in a state of menopause, you're never going to be able to have children, but it's a dose that is still functional. And I've had clients before who had complete hysterectomy, losing it to cancer in their 40s, and then went into this mode of, I'm gonna clean up my whole life, my whole diet, I'm gonna quit my job and just really take care of myself. And when the adrenals are in a good place, they are not exhausted, you do not have adrenal fatigue, right? Your adrenals are able to step in and compensate for that loss of ovaries and by producing estrogen. So that's one thing. So taking care of your adrenals, really important. She doesn't mention, right, what is the health of her adrenals, but I would just say lots of vitamin C, a lot of rest, good sleep, good quality sleep, just not worrying about things, not being the worrying person who's always like, every sentence that starts, but I'm afraid that, like, we don't want that, So that's about the adrenals. And the last thing I would just say is that your fat cells also produce estrogen. So that's another source. So you actually are producing estrogen still and progesterone, but it's never going to be, and it's going to be in good amounts. And if you, like I said, if your adrenals are in a good place, and the seed rotation is going to help with metabolizing that aggressive estrogen I talked about and just rebalancing you.
Okay, great. So, I wanted to just follow up about how it works when we're in menopause, how the seed cycling works. I know if I shared with you, Magdalena, I really didn't have any menopausal women in my community before the Hormone Summit because I worked with fertility. That's kind of the opposite thing. Okay. So now I'm welcoming them into the fold and trying to learn more about menopause myself. So I did look up seed cycling could benefit when you're fully menopausal. And my kind of sense of that is, these more female hormones kind of keep us feeling like young and juicy, and we still are making small amounts, just not quite as much when our ovaries aren't working so much anymore. Any other comments on why seed cycling could be nice, or have nice results for a fully menopausal woman?
Yeah, because it helps to detoxify us from estradiol and the metabolites, the aggressive metabolites of estrone, the first E1, which is the so there are three estrogens, right? Estrone, estradiol, and estriol. And estrone and estradiol, the E1 and E2, tend to be on the aggressive side, and especially the metabolites of the E1. It's called the hydroxy hydrones are estrone, sorry, they are the ones that tend to be a problem. So, like I said earlier, flaxseed tends to skew the in the direction of the good metabolites, and that's why women experience less things like hot flashes and forgetfulness, which are often the result of low estrogen, right? So when you're not juicy, when your hair starts falling out, when your skin starts sagging, breast starts sagging, we're not building enough muscle, right? It's oftentimes because of low estrogen. And so that's why when we said earlier that estrogen is in food can really help with our own natural estrogen, that is also the case here. So
okay, right. Yeah. So I think too, moving into postmenopause, we want to think about, well, we always want to think about cancer prevention, but especially as that change happens, and it sounds like seed cycling to help for detox and the more protective estrogens is really good. I think the estrogens also help for bone mass too, right? So for keeping up the estrogen, kind of keeps up that bone mass. Great. So we got a couple other good questions here. Jen wanted to know why we have to grind the seeds and use them right away. And so, yeah, my sense is like it gets rancid real quick once it's open to oxygen. I know some people say, well, you could like wrap it in a tight bag and maybe keep it for a few days. But I always cringe when I see like the big bags of ground flaxseed. Yeah. And the same with a lot of the like paleo cereals. They're all like ground up seeds, and they've been sitting on a shelf, and then they're going to sit in your house. But yeah, if you want to share more about that, Magdalena, that'd be great.
Yes, I mean, as you said it's that I'm kind of lazy, so I grind it like typically for 4 days in advance and keep it in a fridge in an airtight container. But I think her question, why do we need to grind it, or when, or?
Yeah, why? Like, you're saying you can keep that for 4 days.
Yeah, so I talked about it before, because by grinding, you're releasing the lignans, and the lignans are the ones that have the potency of helping your hormones. Yeah, and like you said, I would not do it for more than 4 days and keep it in an airtight container, and definitely not be buying the flaxseed, the flax meal as they call it in a shop. Just grind it yourself. You go to bulk section, and in Whole Foods or Sprouts or Trader Joe's or whatever, you can get it for like fraction of the cost compared to the bags. So it's cheaper and it's fresher, it's much better quality.
Yeah, maybe I've been more of a stickler than you, because I'm like, grind it the same day. Do not grind it ahead of time. But we have been, doing some recipes. Like we just did a breakfast pudding, and we have you grind it, and then you can keep it in the fridge for 4 or 5 days. Like my pesto, I say you can reuse it, within a week. So I think there are exceptions, but I want to also just encourage people to like be okay to have that grinder out and grind it. Like, just keep it on your counter and make it easy, because I think the very freshest is the very best. Yeah. Okay, here's a question from Isa. She says she becomes dizzy before menstruation, and she's wondering if seed cycling can help. Any thoughts on that dizziness, Magdalena?
I haven't heard of dizziness I haven't come across that as being a PMS symptom, but a lot of women are just different. And I would say you absolutely have nothing to lose by trying it. So go for it.
Yeah, Isa, I would say too, it makes me think of like adrenal function, that kind of low blood pressure that can come with like poor adrenal function. And something I find in my body when my period is coming, so there's a lot of activity right around your period, and if our steroid hormones are generally low, and includes the female hormones and the adrenal hormones, it can be a rough time and can manifest in a lot of symptoms. For like dizziness maybe isn't one everybody has, but I think it's definitely possible. I know for me, like my immune system can really wobble right like as my period's coming, and it's just that's those steroid hormones being low. So I think the seed cycling is supportive, but also you can have like a little salt in your water, and then do some like the adaptogens for the adrenals, getting your sleep and rest for the adrenals. So it might be like Magdalena said earlier, seed cycling could help, but you might need to be layering in some more support for, I would think, your adrenals and just your whole hormonal system. Okay. Roxy was asking about zinc when you are a menopausal woman? How much zinc should a menopausal woman use? I don't know if that's any different for a cycling woman. What are your thoughts on that?
I haven't heard of different dosage for menopausal women.
Yeah, I think it's the same.
So I don't think it's any different.
Okay. Yeah, and I would say as far as dosage a day, I'm not sure what the RDA is. I probably have something around here with a zinc RDA. But sometimes, like with fertility, we say like 15, even up to 30 milligrams. Trying to see if I can find something handy that says the RDA. Usually the recommended daily allowance is definitely lower than the therapeutic dose if you're trying to restore your zinc. And like you said, if you're having a lot of copper or there's different factors involved, a lot of people who are eating healthy do eat a lot of high copper foods. So we need to think about getting more zinc.
Oysters, bring out the oysters.
Oh yeah, there you go. Okay. Jen was asking about this, adding the salt to the water. So it's like a little bit of increases blood pressure, so to speak. But actually, some people need to increase blood pressure a little bit when their adrenals are weak. So if you have a big problem with high blood pressure, they say to avoid too much salt. But if you're many of us, like a little woman with weak hormones, sometimes you need to increase your blood pressure a bit, and there's really like no harm in that little bit of extra, like adding a little mineral salt to your water. Or you can make, what do they call it, a Soleil, like a soaking of salt and water, and make this really concentrated salty water, and then put just a bit of it in your drinking water for a little boost. So you can do that like in the afternoon if you feel a little groggy, or like Isa said, like when she's about to have her period. Okay, so I think we're going to wrap up soon, so we'll just take a few more questions. So Eleni is asking, except for seed cycling, what else can we do to lower estrogen dominance? Magdalena also mentioned the salad with the carrots and beets. And what else? I feel like you've mentioned a few other things. We had
liver.
The liver.
So taking care of the liver is really important, and the estrogen gets metabolized by the methylation pathway. So anything that helps methyl. So you have things like all the DIM-rich vegetables, so cruciferous vegetables, basically, and which would be things like broccoli, cauliflower, bok choy, my favorite, arugula, mizuna, those are all cabbage, right? So sauerkraut, a good example would be all the kohlrabi, all the radishes, which is like now is the perfect time to buy them. We're going into summers full of radishes, and they're also going to be in autumn. So bring on the crucifers, doing stuff for your liver. So like milk thistle, parsley is really wonderful. Do you use parsley in the pesto that you have in a recipe?
I didn't in the one that I did on the video. We did the pumpkin seed with basil, but yeah, there's so many variations too.
Yeah, exactly. There's no right or wrong. So just adding that. Another one is sulfur-rich foods like onion and garlic are very, very good for the liver as well to help with that particular pathway. So I would really focus on the liver. In the long term. And, if somebody has like really terrible estrogen dominance with horrendous PMSs, then I like to work with supplements just to get the person on the right track quicker, because food can take, a little bit of time, right? So doing a supplement like DIM, diallyl-methane, is you just go to a store, ask for DIM, D-I-M, that has got extracts of that active compound that helps with estrogen detoxification that is extracted from broccoli. Actually, broccoli sprouts is another one I forgot. If you just do a cup of broccoli sprouts a day, there are studies that show women who have breast cancer have their breast cancer, the cancers completely shrink. If you go to PubMed.com and you just look for Brussels sprouts and broccoli sprouts and breast cancer, is actually acknowledged that a cup a day has significant therapeutic effect on the cancer. So amazing things can happen with food. And they were doing that in comparison to tamoxifen, which is the drug that's given to women with estrogen positive breast cancers, and which have got horrible side effects on women, including it really messes with our liver. It makes all the other hormonal imbalances much worse. Because of the liver, it can impact our bone density, right? So it's a long answer to say, just take care of your estrogen dominance, and with all the solutions that I mentioned, and the seed rotation, of course, and that should really help.
Yeah, lots of questions on the estrogen dominance. That just keeps going up. Well, this is maybe a nearby question, but it's a little different topic, which is how does seed cycling help endometriosis? So some of my understanding is keeping that, again, estrogen dominance in check can help some of the endometriosis symptoms, because the estrogen can kind of aggravate the endometrial implants. I know also just keeping inflammation down. So for seed cycling and the endometriosis, yeah, I think the estrogen dominance, the fiber and the detox are helpful. The more gentle phytoestrogen can be helpful. But Sarah, there are definitely other things to think about too for endometriosis, like having anti-inflammatory foods and keeping down the inflammation, regulating the immune system. Do you have any tips for endometriosis, Magdalena?
I would focus on definitely on the estrogen dominant stuff we talked about already, and because estrogen does quicken the proliferation of that tissue, and so the same thing with breast cancer. So yeah, I would just really focus on that predominantly, and yeah, I can't think of anything else at this point that will help.
Okay. Yeah, and we are one of our friends and colleagues, Melissa Turner. What's her website? Endo something. I'll look it up in a second. But she has great resources and kind of talks about the core of treating endometriosis. We had her on our hormone summit, which you can always still get access to at our site. And yeah, I think we'll take one last question and then share a little bit more about some ongoing resources. So Karen had an interesting question, kind of two questions, about using things like foods that can basically raise testosterone and progesterone. You want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so let's start off with progesterone. So first of all, you want to think of progesterone, but also you want to think about lowering estrogen, because estrogen typically tends to be higher, progesterone is higher. So it's not just about elevating your progesterone, but it's also about bringing your estrogen down or rebalancing it with the methods we talked about so that it opposes progesterone one-to-one. So that's one thing. The progesterone building foods that will be typically foods that are high in vitamin B6. Vitamin C will be definitely very helpful. And those beets and carrots I talked about, they're really beneficial when it comes to vitamin B6. When it comes to helping boost up progesterone. So that's something I would definitely recommend. Omega-3 helps. Evening primrose oil in the luteal phase has oils in them that helps to support the building of or production of progesterone. So that's something I definitely would recommend as well in the luteal phase. So from your day, say 14 to day 28. As far as I know, did you say to boost up testosterone?
Testosterone as well, she's wondering about.
Okay. So testosterone is, I feel like there isn't anything that at least I know of dietarily that you just take. Again, is that question of of that Western medicine approach, right? Like, what's the pill I can take for higher testosterone? Now I want to have a different pill, but this time in the food pill to fix it. As far as I know, there isn't one thing that's going to give you a testosterone boost right away, except that when you start rebalancing your body. So it's everything from having healthy digestion, having healthy liver. We talked about getting off all the food allergens, gluten, dairy, sugar, coffee. I tend to see more results of women rebalancing the testosterone that way rather than not. So that's my take on it. I'm wondering what you see, Bridget, whether you work with anything specifically for boosting testosterone?
Well, I can remember a tiny bit from on our hormone summit was Dr. Tammy Maraglia, and she wrote a book that has a lot of emphasis on testosterone, and I know she was into vitamin C. So there's like that Camu powder is high in vitamin C, and lots of things are high in vitamin C. I'm a big fan of like using a whole lemon in water. You know, there's peppers.
Kiwis are very high as well in vitamin C, actually. Yeah, guava.
Yeah.
Live in tropical countries, guava is the highest fruit in vitamin C.
Yeah, actually, I can't remember. I think she also just talked about some of the adaptogenic herbs, which are good for adrenals. You know, if we think about boosting sex hormones, we have to say, are the adrenals supported? And when those are, then we start to make more sex hormones. For some quickies for boosting testosterone, exercise, and it doesn't even have to be that intensive exercise, but taking a walk, doing some squats, doing some yoga poses, boost your testosterone very quickly in the moment. So if you're kind of feeling low energy or feeling frumpy, you can just get some movement, or just like strike a power pose, and that boosts testosterone quickly. Cool. This has been super, super fun. It's always interesting to hear what questions come out and what people are most curious about. So appreciate everybody being on, and want to give you some resources as we move forward. So your main website, Magdalena, is hormonesbalance.com. Is that right?
Yeah, hormones with an S. Mm-hmm.
Hormones Balance. And what can they find there?
Well, a lot of recipes, a lot of articles, links to workshops to get further education, going deeper into just understanding your body and what impacts your hormones. Yeah.
Okay, great. And we're going to share a link to Yet to Be Made, because I made a mistake and we didn't. But we're going to share a link to her cooking. What do you call it? Cooking for hormone balance course.
Cooking for Balance.
Cooking for Balance. So we're going to share it at this link, which isn't live quite yet, but I'll share it too with the replay. But we'll get you set up to her webinar on cooking for balance, in this case, hormone balance.
Yeah, it's basically how to make recipes with the different foods we talked about. So just to put it into practice.
Yeah, exactly. Like just building it into your lifestyle, which I think is really great and really powerful. And yeah, let me share just quickly again a few of the pages in case you're coming in late. I know somebody said, wait, where are the instructions? So this is a Facebook group, and then the blog. The blog has a lot of stuff on it, and we're still putting more and more all the time. So we have links to Magdalena's 2 cracker recipes. We have some cooking videos, and we're getting more. We have some basic instructions, and then on the blog questions, I answered a lot of questions that were coming up. So just head on over there. Just head on over to hormonesbalance.com. Magdalena has a beautiful newsletter you can join. She has a very great aesthetic sense on top of being a great cook. So you can join her newsletter over there. And again, we'll share that Cooking for Balance webinar at bridgetdanner.com/cooking once I get that organized in the next hour or so here. And we'll share that link in the replay. So if you'd like to check out her cooking webinar, go to your email that's coming with the replay, and we'll share more of these links so they're easier to get at than at the chat. Thanks so much, Magdalena.
Yeah, thank you. Very good questions. Thank you, everybody, for posing some really good questions.
Yeah, and just a big thanks too. I think it's good to acknowledge this. Most people aren't doing much to take care of their bodies at all, or in a natural way. They're just kind of popping pills and just following the TV commercials. So just a big thank you that you're here, trying to learn about your body, trying to learn about food, trying to heal naturally. Magdalena and I both really appreciate that, and want to support you in doing that. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Bye.